Hello and welcome to another edition of MAGA Inside Out with I'm Chip Franklin and Lev Parnas, of course, who is the impetus behind this show and revealing information about his association not only with Rudy Giuliani but the former president. And Lev, before we get to it, we have some really I think interesting sound and video, much of which you've been accumulating over the past 5, 6, 7 years. And coming up in a minute, we're going to hear from one of Trump's counsel who gave you a phone call, and it kind of plays into this idea that Trump was a micromanager, that Trump had his fingerprints over all of this. But before we get to that, let's just, for people that are just tuning in that know you, let's explain a little bit about what brought you to this point. Last time we spoke on our previous podcast, we got up into April of 2018. But to kind of summarize that period, you were brought into Trump's circle, not by Rudy, but in a lot of ways by Trump himself, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just to recap it quickly, I was somebody that was never involved in politics, and then just miraculously started by one donation to a Trump event, a private dinner. And after that dinner, it took off. Our relationship basically grew. And after that, I went to all kinds of private events. I built a strong relationship with a Trump insider. He was a lobbyist, Brian Ballard at the time. And at this point in 2018 of April, I'm still a hardcore Trumper, but I'm still a donor. I'm not an operative yet. I haven't been tasked to do anything. It's just mainly giving my opinion.
What part of the Trump allure seduced you?
I mean, everything. I mean, growing up the way I grew up, and that's why I write the book, Shadow Diplomacy. I mean, I grew up in the streets of Brooklyn without a father. You know, my father passed away when I was 11 years old, and I started working at 12 and taking care of my mother, my sister, my grandmother. I grew up at a very quick age, and to me at that time, it was all about power and money, because growing up in a poor environment, especially as immigrants in that little enclave of a community called Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, New York, it was primarily all Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish immigrants that immigrated at the same time. So we were on that mindset still. It was us against the government, and you have to, cash is king. And as young kids, we looked up to the powerful people back then in the 80s. When I was growing up, you had the mobsters, the Italian mafia was very big, and, that we looked up to. They had the flashy cars, the nice women, the money.
As did Trump, right?
And exactly. Giuliani. I mean, exactly. As the Trump. I mean, Trump was basically part of it. But back then, we were too young to realize how big of a criminal Trump really was. So we looked up to Trump as being the legal side of that power and money, to get to attain.
You were arrested and convicted. You had a house arrest, had to stay in your house for how long?
Combined, it was a little over 3 years, almost 4 years, with the house arrest and detention and everything.
Yeah. And you haven't spoken to Rudy in almost 5 years, right?
Last time I spoke to him was that night prior to the day where I got arrested. Okay. Prior to my arrest.
You have thousands of audio tapes, pictures, transcriptions of your time inside this circle. You told me last time we spoke that you took these for posterity in the beginning. You weren't trying to cover your ass or anything, which these do now. But at what point did you realize go from I'm accumulating these because I'm around the president of the United States to I really need these in case the shit hits the fan?
I mean, never. I mean, because you have to understand, my arrest came out of the blue. When I got arrested, I was a hardcore Trumper. I mean, if you take a look at my interview in the New Yorker that I gave the day, I think a couple of days or a week prior to my arrest, I called Trump the greatest president ever to be alive. So, I was drinking the Kool-Aid at the time. So no, I was full force on board. And again, when I was documenting the pictures and the videos and the audios, they were for my history that I could be able to share with my kids and grandkids. Right. But simultaneously, my partner Igor was taking audio and video of private dinners, private meetings, private.
For the same reason, or was he suspicious?
No. Well, no, his reasons were strictly business, because at the time, before we became operatives, we were trying to, do a business between Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine and America.
And for everybody, you were born in Ukraine, but came over here as a young boy.
Yeah, I was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and immigrated here in 1976 as a 4-year-old.
Okay.
And because of the way business is done there, it's all about showing a picture with somebody. It's not what you know, it's who you know type of a scenario. So what's more powerful than an audio or video recording of you sitting with the president, or you sitting with Rudy Giuliani, or you sitting with somebody talking about Ukraine or getting rid of the ambassador? And not that we knew what conversations would come up, but Igor took them strategically, thinking that he was going to use them when we go over there to business to show that how in we were. Never did I think those were actually that I would one day be able to validate everything I was talking about, and like you said, save my ass from a lot of the stuff that was going on.
Your attraction to the Trump campaign was that you might be able to go to Ukraine and stir up some trouble, trying to get them to manufacture stories and or some sort of evidence to incriminate Biden and I guess and anybody, but especially Biden, into this relationship with these oil companies and kickbacks. And who presented that to you? That premise that this is something you could do and you could help the president in that regard.
Well, what happened was it was a combination of things, like I call it a perfect storm that transpired. That while I was, being a Trump insider, top level Trumper supporter, and drinking the Kool-Aid, simultaneously there were other people in Trump world that were already looking into Ukraine for things that were happened in 2016, like called it from Russiagate, like the Manafort ledger. Rudy was out there trying to show that there was
For everybody, the Manafort ledger was when Manafort had to leave because the then president of Ukraine was thrown out. They discovered a ledger that had payments to Manafort. Is that what you're referring to?
correct kickbacks to not just Manafort, but it was a black book that had kickbacks to all government and officials, oligarchs, and Manafort's name was in that ledger. So this conspiracy theory that Giuliani and Trump world was thinking that it was a fake ledger that the Democrats produced, that the real ledger didn't have any of the Manafort stuff in there. So that was one of the things they were chasing. The other thing they were chasing was the DNC servers. They said that they were in Ukraine, and they were trying to find the DNC servers in Ukraine. So that was, simultaneously going on by different people like Giuliani, Devin Nunes, John Solomon, and maybe even Bannon and all of them. But they were all different. They were all in their own groups doing their own thing until that one night in November. We were just finished doing our campaigning because we were running around with Rudy all over the country campaigning for Republicans in the midterms, and we were celebrating because one of our main ones, Ron DeSantis, won Florida, and we were in the Grand Havana room. I remember sitting there. They were having drinks, cigars, and when Rudy got a call from one of his investigators, Bart Schwartz, Bart called him up, and Rudy picked up the phone, and the conversation had to do with Ukraine, had to do with corruption in Ukraine, had to do with all kinds of. So basically, Bart Schwartz had some sort of a whistleblower that was giving him all of this information. After Rudy got off the phone, he sat down and basically uploaded me and Igor like he would always do. He'd grab a cigar, drink, and then tell us the whole story like it was a movie, and then we would go over it like every day else. But this time it was different because when he started talking about Ukraine, me and Igor obviously had a lot of knowledge about Ukraine, but we also had a lot of the contacts that Rudy was talking about and some of the conspiracy theories he was saying. Me and Igor had access to a lot of that because of the world we were in, the business world, because a lot of the same people were on this basically on the same Trump link, because these were some of the people that were corrupt in Ukraine, and obviously people like the U.S. ambassador was fighting them. So they basically combined and their interests combined.
I got a question for you along those lines. You mentioned about Rudy and these conspiracy claims. How much of this do you believe that Rudy actually believes?
It's hard to say. I mean, because even before the conspiracy theories, Rudy truly believes that Joe Biden is a crook. He believes that he's a plagiarist, that he plagiarized some kind of speech. Rudy believes that Joe Biden and is crooked with his family. So he believes it. How much does he believe that it actually happened in Ukraine? Being in Trump world and being in that cult environment, I'm gonna have to say he believes it, because you're not the same person you are. I know a lot of people are saying, but come on, but you gotta look at me. I mean, look, before I got into the cult world, 90% of the things that Trump would do or make fun of or think is, is like it would be opposite of what I believed in and lived in. But when I was in cult world, I learned to make excuses for it, justify it, and look the other way and move forward. And eventually, you start believing your own garbage. So, does we believe it? Yeah, I think he believes it.
Well, moving forward, I mean, today we're going to talk. I mean, if there's a theme to these shows, today's theme would be that Trump was much more involved in this than a lot of people think. And
Absolutely.
this has been his mistake for a long time. Is that he doesn't have people around him that he trusts. He doesn't trust anybody. He's a sociopath. I mean, a diagnosed sociopath, but not one-on-one, but thousands of psychiatrists have said this. And if he's that involved, obviously when mistakes are made, he's going to be around those, and he's going to be obviously the person behind many of this. So, for example, the phone call with Zelensky, I mean, he allowed that to be recorded. Did he allow that to be recorded? Do we know? I mean,
it had to be recorded. It was part of protocol. So,
okay.
Every presidential phone call is recorded, and then there's a transcript that's released. In this instance, because when they released the transcript, when the whistleblower Vindman released the transcript, that's when already afterwards, I think the Trump campaign released the phone call to show that it was like a perfect phone call, because the transcript like made it out to seem worse.
Which is interesting, considering the Supreme Court is listening to immunity cases today. Or John Sauer, his attorney, make the case for Trump's immunity. Saying that would be a perfect case of them saying it fell within, his duties and responsibilities as a president but again, one thing that Sotomayor said today is that he was trying to get something for him personally. This was not for the country. This was for him personally. Almost everything that you saw was about benefiting him personally, right? Everything about trying to get, I mean, I will get into in a minute why Ukraine is such a fascination for him, but, trying to get this dirt on Biden. He was trying to get dirt before Biden was a legitimate presidential candidate. I mean, he was.
I mean, it's going back to 2000, even in his first election. If you remember, even when they asked him, I think somebody interviewed him and said, would you take information from a foreign adverssory against your opponent, Hillary? He said, yeah, why not?
Stephanopoulos asked him that question. I remember that. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people have learned, and that's the problem, excuse what he says and make up for it and make their own excuses why he said that. They try to say, well, he didn't really mean that. What he meant to say is this, and this. And, Trump says exactly what he means. He lies when he lies, and he tells you directly when it comes to what he means. And absolutely, I mean, I'm sorry, what were you asking me?
No. I guess the point I'm after here in just a minute is that so Trump is hands-on. And we're gonna hear a phone call in a few minutes that you tape recorded on your phone, or it was on your voicemail, excuse me, from one of his attorneys. And before I get to that, though, I want to try to understand what his motive here is.
Sure.
At least from your point of view, because we know that he had a fascination with Putin over the years, trying to get a Trump Tower in Moscow.
Right.
We know that Eric Trump admitted it to a CNN reporter that they get all their money from back in the teens. They get all their money from Russia, and it goes way back. We know about the Deutsche Bank problems. That the Deutsche was saying they wouldn't lend them money on one hand, and yet they're lending them money on the other. So following the path of the money is always interesting. He's always had this fascination with Russia and Putin. I guess my question is, did it ever come up in your conversations with Rudy, the possibility that Vladimir Putin was more closely involved in Trump's decisions than we know of?
No, like I always said, Vladimir Putin and Trump don't have a relationship. I mean, Trump is basically Putin's useful idiot.
Right.
But I mean, there's
conversations, I guess, is what I'm trying to figure out.
No, I mean, there was no conversation because Trump had nothing to do with him. You have to understand, Trump understood what Vladimir Putin, just like right now, when Trump comes out and makes a statement that I'm going to get rid of NATO, destroy NATO, he understands that the only person that benefits right now is Vladimir Putin. So for him to go, he doesn't need Vladimir Putin to call him up and say, Donald Trump, we really need, your help to get rid of NATO. It doesn't work.
So why is he doing it? It's not a P tape.
No, because he wants to get in good graces, because he wants Russia to interfere in our elections and help him win. It's
Okay.
simple as that. It's
Got it.
simple as that, Chip. It's people try to complicate it. People try to say, well, the Russians have compromise on him. Well, they speak, or they are there messages going back and forth?
Well,
I mean, absolutely. Let's take a look.
did
Why
did
is
he
Tucker
know?
Carlson all of a sudden out of? Oh, go ahead.
So in your conversation with Rudy, and Rudy you'd be in the room when Rudy's on the phone with Trump, so you get that side of the conversation, right? I guess the first question is, would Trump ever confide in Rudy about, I mean, let's go back for a second and say that Trump's not having any kind of communication with Putin. He's just taking the love, as for lack of a better word, that Putin is throwing his way, going back to the Podesta emails and the DNC and the hacking, and then the releasing of the emails, the WikiLeaks, and that whole process, and him saying, Russia, Russia, Russia. You're saying that all of that existed without any communications between Putin and Trump, at least as far as you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's no, I mean, trust me when I tell you, if there was any communication, you would know by now after all these years. There was no, but that's Chip. That's what I'm trying to say. As crazy as it sounds, people want to try to figure out why Trump is doing it. I'm telling you why Trump, because Trump, first of all, Trump needs Putin. It's like take two enemies, two gangsters. It's like that saying, enemy of my, the friend of my enemy, or enemy of my friend is my enemy. So meaning, like, Trump needs Russia. He saw what Russia did by helping interfering in the 2016 election. He saw how close he lost the 2020 with Russia's help. He understands right now the only way he has a chance of winning this election is with Russia's help. So obviously he's doing everything in his power to show Russia that he is on Putin's side. I mean, you got to take a look.
Does Rudy realize that as well?
I mean, the whole world. I mean, everybody.
I know it. You know it. But you said
of course,
Rudy is kind of
realizes.
deluded. Does he really understand that he's assisting Russia?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why do you think Rudy doesn't believe that? Why do you think? Why does everybody want to give Rudy a pass? Rudy's one of the leaders in this whole thing. Why? As crazy as it sounds, yeah. But Rudy is in one of the and not only enablers, but one of the biggest conspiracy theorists in Trump world. I mean, if Trump is, and again, just remember when Rudy was dealing with Dear Koch, the Russian asset that was already by Trump's own Steve Mnuchin, Trump's own Treasury Department sanctioned him. When he was sitting there after he did his interview with him, and a reporter asked Rudy, said, Rudy, but he's a known Russian asset. Rudy responded, I don't know that.
So much has changed.
What do you mean? I don't know that. I mean, we all know that. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, he admits it. I mean, he could, and this is like how that's their whole thing. Because when you're in a culture, and this is what people don't understand, when you're in that environment, your brain locks out. You don't think the same way. You're not the same person because you have nothing to base your information on, and you think you are so right. You are forced to believe that scenario, whatever it is.
Have you received death threats?
Oh, yes, plenty.
And does the FBI follow up on them? Do you know?
We had one instance where I had to get the authorities involved, but like otherwise, primarily, most social media, nothing to.
So when you were arrested, you were still full on board with Trump. What date? What was the date of your arrest again? I'm sorry.
October 9th, 2019.
Okay. So boy, so that blew your world, right? I mean, you were charged with how many felonies?
6 or 7 at the time.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, it didn't matter at the time because whatever they charged me with, they threw it out and recharged me a year later. It was all about us. The initial charges were all produced by the DOJ finest to produce a show to be able to make me look out to be like a Russian spy, a liar, and somebody not credible enough to be able to come out and speak out the truth against Trump. So that's what that was all about.
Did Trump allow this to happen? I mean, it was his Justice Department.
I mean, but he didn't run it. Who ran it was Bill Barr. He's the culprit behind it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you didn't hold Trump responsible for your arrest for how long?
No, I mean, I still don't hold him responsible for my arrest. Trump would never have wanted me arrested. Giuliani never wanted me arrested. They wanted me out there getting the dirt. It was Bill Barr that was trying to protect Trump, protect and isolate him, because
Mm.
Bill Barr understood, because he runs the DOJ and he runs the services that gives him the direct, correct information, and he knew the information we were dealing with was Russian disinformation. Even though we might have believed that it's the truth and everything, but Bill Barr understood that this was Russian disinformation. And when the whistleblower report came out in September of 2019 and naming me as one of the people on the ground in the Ukraine working, pressuring Zelensky and Ukrainians to open an investigation of the Bidens, that's when the whole impeachment inquiry started. So Bill Barr understood that it was just a matter of time until I would get called in to testify, and at which point, knowing that I'm full-flown Trump Rudy, thinking that this is the truth, we would be pushing Russian disinformation, and it would blow back on Trump. And he knew the relationship was close between Trump and us. It was too close for him to isolate it. So the only way he was able to try to help Trump and isolate it was to arrest me, cover up all my information, hire a announce a special counsel for the Ukraine mess, to be able to use it as not a source of getting down to the truth, but a catch and kill situation, where basically to collect all the information that I had, and to be able to kill it, suppress it and kill it, to be able to then put out a different story, like the FBI informant, that had nothing to do with Trump, that was an arm's width. It had nothing to do with Giuliani, had nothing to do with Trump. It was a 1023, an FBI informant that basically started this whole thing. It had nothing to do with the whole Giuliani, Trump, Parnas and investigation, and that was Bill Barr's whole scheme.
So do these Shadow Diplomacy is your book, and obviously having these. Well, let me back up and ask you a question. When you left the country with Rudy, and who paid for those flights, and who paid your travel and expenses?
It was different. Majority of time, it was either Igor paying for our company, or then later on we were getting paid by different oligarchs, Republican billionaires, Ukrainian billionaires. They were funding.
Did the money go through the White House or come directly to you? You know?
No, I didn't go directly to the White House.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say it right out here. Did you get rich through this whole process at all?
No, not only did I get rich, I lost everything.
Okay. Going back and looking at, we're going to play this this tape from this former Trump attorney, and you just reminded me of her notoriety. She was present in that famous picture, which I wish I had. Of Rudy with the
Yes.
hair dye going down his face. And you've also said, you told us on the last one that Trump at some point avoided Rudy because Rudy would drink a lot, and Rudy seemed like a loose cog in the wheel that could disrupt whatever plans Trump had. As he pushed Rudy away, did Rudy see that, and did Rudy take it personally? And what was your observation of Rudy when this was started to happen?
Well, it was. It's not the point that there was a point where he did it. It was from even during when he was running for a 2016 election. I mean, he would make fun of Rudy. Rudy would fall asleep at the plane, and he'd say, "Look at that low energy." He would look at Rudy and say, "Look at him." I mean, he had. You have to understand. People think that there was a transformation between Rudy and Trump. No, I mean, Rudy. Again, what happened with Rudy and Trump is the same thing that happened with Trump and Putin. Their interests aligned. They didn't like each other. They didn't have. It's not like when Rudy was mayor, he looked. I mean, he hated Trump. I mean, they didn't like it. Trump was just Rudy's way to get back into the limelight, to get into a position as close as possible to the White House, which he could never get to because he never got the Senate seat. He never got the White House. So here he thought by supporting Trump and that he would get the Secretary of State, which he never got.
Once he lost to Dinkins, he never really had anything after that, did he? It was
correct, right. And for Rudy, the biggest draw and appeal was that limelight and attention, not the money. Not he needed to be in the limelight. So he saw Trump as what getting in the limelight, and that's what he did. That's why he got out there. That's why he became the most vocal person out there on behalf of Trump.
Okay, so you made a lot of recordings with an iPhone. And you just heard my iPhone go off a second ago, right? And then we heard it. How did you not get caught? I mean, the tape we're going to play before was what tape that Victoria Tunsing left on your
voice message.
Voice message.
Right.
But when you're sitting and talking to somebody and you hit record, Did you keep it in your pocket? How did you do? Did you do it? Have to do it surreptitiously, or you just your phone would be out there? How did you record so many people and get this huge volume of incredible information and conversations recorded without getting caught?
I wasn't hiding. I mean, I did an open site. I mean, this is what I'm saying to you. It's not like nobody told me put the phone away or so. I mean, yes, Igor took some very undercover, like, where we had private meetings and dinners with Trump, where he would, he put the phone somewhere close and put it upside down and record the whole hour and a half conversation. So I have several of those type of conversations, and at the White House, at Trump International, at Mar-a-Lago. So I have several of those, but primarily it was never, besides those, crazy, private meeting recordings, mostly everything was on the open. I mean,
And they trusted you. They trusted you.
not only they trusted me, I mean, I took pictures of Trump and other donors, which with their own cameras and like with their own, I mean, it was not, you have to understand there's a certain vetting process that you have to go through to be able to get into even an event. Forget about, let alone stand next to the president, or let alone be in the private room with the president. And I've been to so many of these. I've been vetted so many times that it's just like, it's silly to even, that's why it's like when the FBI and the DOJ and everybody, and they all went after me, and then they arrested me for espionage, and then 3 months later they dropped that charge because it was just made up to be able to suppress.
You were at Dallas Airport getting ready to get on a plane. You didn't even see it coming, right? Boom.
Oh, how could, see, this is one thing that they lied to the public. How could I? It was a sealed indictment. Right. When they go out there and say we were on the run, running from authorities, how? Like, well, give me. They didn't produce, now their whole evidence is that we had a one-way ticket.
Do you think they give Trump a heads up that they were about to arrest you?
100%. You have to say, well, because Rudy was supposed to be on the plane with me. Rudy was supposed to be on the plane with me,
right.
Victoria Tunzing, Joe DeGenova. We were all going together to Vienna, and then last second, I mean, Rudy literally hours before the same day before we take off, we were sitting having breakfast at the Trump International. He told me, "I'll meet you in a few days because I have to go." Now I don't know, maybe if they told him that we're going to be arrested, or if they pulled him because because I like to be as honest as possible. Even I might not like Rudy, but where he's wrong, he's wrong. He's right, he's right. And I don't believe Rudy ever wanted me to get arrested. It would make no sense for him. I was his number one asset out there, and I was so loyal. And I think it was.
Yeah, but he's not going to endanger his ass to protect your ass.
Well, that's the problem. See, this is where the whole situation is. Once we did get arrested, I think, whatever excuse Rudy got not to get on the plane, it was whatever it is. But then once we got arrested and he already knew, it's his actions after the fact is what is important.
Okay, this phone call we're about to play. This is Victoria Tunzing, who was an attorney. When did she come along in the Trump world, and how long did she stay? And when did you get this phone call?
She's been in Trump world a long time. She's been an intricate part. She was one of the lawyers on the that was supposed to be part of his Mueller team. Then she was his just consultant, and then she was an intricate part of getting Bill Barr over and installed as the attorney general during the Mueller report. So, and she was part of the BLT team. I mean, she had a direct phone to the Trump and called him, after every meeting. The reason why this phone call is important is because, especially with what's going on right now, literally yesterday, the day before yesterday, David Pecker testified at the Trump hush money case, where that Trump is a micromanager. A lot of people don't realize that, because when they are used to hearing billionaires or powerful people, they tend to think, oh, he has staffs of people and staffs of people and assistants on top of assistants. Well, Trump ran his Trump World Corporate, and this is what we're getting to a view inside, which I knew already, but the world is getting to see, as a mob boss, a micromanager, somebody that needed to know every detail was going on, a narcissist.
And he spoke, as Michael Cohen says, he spoke like a mob boss. He would never say, go get that money and give it to that guy. He could say, that thing, we got to get it done.
Yeah.
Right, here's the phone conversation. The beginning is a little garbled, but she says this is VT, which is her initials for Victoria Tunzing. And then the rest of it, I have some closed captioning. It's a short call. Listen up.
Hey, Lev, BT here. We've got a request to talk to the big one. So I just wanted to get the latest from you if I could. I know it's late there. I'm sorry.
She says when she says the latest, does she mean the latest on your investigation in Ukraine? What is she talking about?
Yeah, correct. Because that's why she says it's late there. I was in Ukraine at the time, and that would be this was a daily ritual. It didn't matter if it was Victoria Tudzing, John Solomon, or Rudy Giuliani, and it went along with them. I would get calls in Ukraine every day where I would give them updates, and then they would call Trump and update Trump. And Trump would get updated on every single day on every single thing that transpired in Ukraine, every meeting, to the fact that once I would get back from Ukraine and we would meet up at the BLT team and have our download the team on what transpired. Right after that, Rudy, and if you take a look at the records, match him to when I would come back from Ukraine, within a day, Rudy would go meet at the White House at the Oval with Trump and download him on that. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. There were people think that, even in this case, was saying, well, maybe it was Michael Cohen doing something with David Pecker and Trump really didn't know. It's the same thing. Well, maybe Lev and Rudy decided to go look into Joe Biden and make Trump win because it only benefits Trump, not nobody else. So
well, obviously, Rudy and Trump and everybody in that circle must have been excited when Hunter's laptop popped up with all these, these pictures of him with women in compromising positions.
When you say, wait, hold on, Chip, wait a second. When you say popped up, when you mean they put it into the news?
Yes.
Because don't forget, I mean, Giuliani was the one. Me and Rudy I was there at my arrest. I was going to get the hard drive.
Well, who was the guy that was he took it in to get repaired, and that guy looked at it and saw it and called somebody, and that somebody called somebody, and that's how you guys.
It's you know what? I don't want to confuse the audience. It's a whole episode of its own, maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
But the laptop story is it would confuse everybody right now. But it was a laptop and a hard drive. It was 2 separate entities. The laptop that was dropped off at the shop is not the same hard drive that Giuliani pushed all over Fox and the New York Post. So there's a lot of culprits like Steve Bannon, the Chinese, and other players in there, that are involved. But
the bottom line was there was no information on there that Hunter Biden had enlisted his father's assistants to get salaries or to get money. There was
the worst stuff on there was actually pictures of him doing drugs and with other women, naked women.
But I bring that up because obviously Comer and Jordan got information from Alexander Smirnov that was given to him by Russian intelligence. Did you know Smirnov?
I didn't know Smirnov personally, but obviously I know all the cast of characters involved.
Okay. So, but this fit right in with the narrative that goes back 20 years with Trump and Russia. Obviously, when we say Russian intelligence, we're saying Putin. That Putin wanted this information to get into the impeachment inquiry. He shoveled it through Smirnov. The FBI caught him somehow lying. I don't know the details, and I don't think they've been given out yet exactly how they caught him. But at some point, Comer and Jordan realized that their information was compromised. Yet continued.
No. See, this is where the mistake again. No, that's not what happened. What happened was, yes, Putin has been trying. You got to understand, Russia has been trying to interfere in our elections ever since Russia's been around. China does it. It happens. This is nothing new.
Well, what did I say that was wrong about that?
The wrong is that they didn't push it in, that they allowed, the Republicans allowed it to come in.
Oh, okay. No, when I said push it, what I meant was
you have to remember, because they knew when they saw that 1023, Christopher Wray and the FBI, and they told them that this is not vetted information. Don't run with it. And if you remember, Grassley and Comer and Jordan ran with it and made it look like it's the most vetted, the most best of. And they went. So what I'm saying to you is they know.
So did Fox every opportunity referred to it as
correct. So when I say you said wrong, it's not that you said something wrong. I said you gave them credit saying that they found out later and still ran with it. Okay. No, they knew all along. They weren't played. They were allowed. This is what I'm saying to you. Trump is not being played. These congressmen are not being played. They're part of the conspiracy. Wow. They are part. They know that this is Russian disinformation and they are pushing it. They knew it back then. That's why back then they didn't push it, Chip.
Wow.
Because these same people that are pushing it now, when we brought it to them in 2019, didn't push it because our intelligence services told them that this is Russian disinformation. What happened is after my arrest and after they shut all of my information up, they needed another source. And Giuliani continued. And
well, we've seen that. Congressman Turner came out and said that Russian propaganda is all throughout the Republican Party now. But there's a difference between being used and being willfully a part of it, right?
Absolutely.
You're implying that Jordan and Comer not only knew, and this is what I suspected, but and we don't really have any proof of this, but it seems like it's, I don't know how you could not get this information and vet it responsibly unless your eyes had rolled back in your head with such hate and anger towards Biden.
Well, no, it's not. It's not that, Chip. It's because the rules that we have on the floor allows these congressmen and senators to basically go there and do a lie and do illegal things and have no accountability for it.
Okay,
because they're not held accountable for it.
I got off subject. Let's go back to that phone call. What was VT or Victoria Townsend? What was she saying that getting together with the big guy? You didn't actually, and the big guy is Trump, obviously, right?
Right. So that this particular phone call had to do with when we were in Ukraine, and we were supposed to get information from one of a Russian asset at the time. His name was Konstantin Kulik, and he was the secretary deputy of general prosecutor at the time, and he was supposed to go above the general prosecutor's head Lutsenko and announce an investigation into the Bidens and do an arrest warrant into Zlochevsky. And that's what Trump was waiting to hear, if that was taking place, and she was wanting to know if that happened for me to update them.
In upcoming episodes, we'll hear more that you've recorded. Has anybody ever spoken to you about this? I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious the NSA must have recorded these as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. They all recorded. And they all hid it, because in my trial documents, there's over 400 or 500 pages that are blacked out that I still don't know. That was supposed to be evidence against me that I never even seen. So you have to understand that our intelligence services knew that this was fake. I mean, Russian disinformation. Ukrainian intelligence knew that this was Russian disinformation, but Giuliani, Solomon, myself, and Trump needed it to be pushed into here. And our biggest problem was that the media, not the congressmen, no senators, would pick up on it until when we had that meeting. And if you remember, the famous Victoria Tunsing, the same Victoria Tunsing, her famous words that Ron Johnson will be our man in the Senate. Yeah. And that's when it started. Then if you take a look at the timeline.
You said that too during the inquiry.
He was, because Ron Johnson started pushing. He met with these Russian assets, started pushing in the Senate, and then Jordan, and then Comer, and then it became a train. And then all of a sudden, Grassley got this 1023 that they thought they had the smoking gun, and then they pushed that. I mean, if you take a look at every single one of their theories, it blew up within a matter of a couple of weeks, a month. I mean, literally, they ran with everything. I remember when they ran, they said they had 17 tapes of Burisma CEO speaking with Joe Biden, and they have the tapes they're going to produce. I remember when I was telling him about these tapes that we thought we had that were conspiracy theories going back over 3 years ago. And then we found out that these tapes didn't even exist, that it was a lie that somebody was trying to do. So they're pushing old conspiracy theories that were debunked even when we were doing it. They're pushing them now. So,
Yeah, it's not just, I guess it is in some ways ironic. Or maybe just it's not that this is the tapes are what brought Nixon down, but these tapes don't seem to have the same effect today. And I guess we'll find out moving forward. Right now, Trump is not under any criminal indictments from Ukraine. He's facing federal charges on January 6th, and he's facing federal charges on those on the papers at Mar-a-Lago, and also Georgia charges and in New York right now for the hush money. But currently, no criminal indictments against him for this. Do you believe, from what you've seen and heard, that Trump committed crimes?
Oh, 100%. Not only Trump, Bill Barr, Rudy, I mean, a whole bunch of people. That's why, there might not be no criminal charges yet. But I truly believe that once the elections are over, and with God's will, that the Democrats take control of the House, I think we'll see some true, real investigation work and real trials of people that not only what they did, because it's bad enough what Trump did, what we as a team, as Giuliani, myself, were involved with doing. That's bad enough. But what's even worse is the cover-up and the push that people like Bill Barr, people like Marjorie Greene, people like Comer and Grassley and all of these, Johnson, that they are doing. because without them, Trump does not pull this off. This never gets nowhere, because this is a lie that's being, this disinformation has been pushed way before since 2014, and they would never have any traction. The only reason they got traction was because I was able to go down there and get them certain people to validate the lies verbally without any proof for it, and they were able to then use Fox as a way to push it through. And here we are now.
What is the most explosive tape you have, without telling me who was recorded? Is there one particular of these hundreds of recordings that you have? Is there one that you listen to again and again and go, I can't believe that happened?
I mean, the craziest one was the most famous one that is when me and him had dinner, and I basically, he asked me my opinion on the ambassador, and I told him that she's no good, and he basically fired her and told me to get rid of her. Told the assistant. I could, till this day, I mean, it's still surreal. I can't believe, that the president of the United States at a dinner with one of his constituents, basically donors, would react to anything that, in that manner.
There must have been Trump insiders that were jealous of your access. Did you feel any animosity from people in that circle?
Oh, big time, because I didn't fit in. I didn't belong in that circle. It was a good old boys club, and I was a kid from the streets of Brooklyn. So, while they were out there having cigars and drinks, I was trying to, go out there and get my vape or smoke my joint. We were in totally different worlds between them. But because of my relationship with Trump, and because I became such a big asset to Rudy and Trump in Ukraine and my contacts, and being so loyal, and that all of that took over, and I became like the point person to Trump and Rudy. So anything that had to do with anything, people hated me, but in my face, they pretended to love me and pat me, because they tried to be nice to me, thinking that I would get them in to see Rudy or pass a message on to Trump or whatever the case may be. But you could see the animosity, absolutely, because there were people there that were billionaires. There were people there that were, in the in the Republican Party for 20, 30 years, and didn't have the same access or availability or respect that I was getting.
What was your relationship with Junior like?
I mean, at the time, Junior was kind of irrelevant. He was just,
it still is,
right. But so he was somebody that we looked at, that drank and partied, and he was Trump's son, and he was on the scene, but it wasn't nobody that anybody took serious or, pay attention. And, I would see him a lot. We would see each other at all the events, and then me and him threw 3 or 4 events together for Ron DeSantis and some other people. So, I mean, it was like a, social relationship, but the guy's a clown. I mean, what can I tell you? So if funny. You want to hear the guy,
we do our really political podcast with Tom Arnold, and Tom was at Mar-a-Lago, I believe. No, at Trump International, and Karen McDougal was there, his girlfriend, and he introduced him to her, and then his wife came over and introduced it, and Trump didn't show any sense of anxiety or anything. Here's his girlfriend and his wife standing in the same picture. There's been a lot.
That doesn't surprise me, Chip.
No, it doesn't surprise me either.
We had an instance in the White House. We're in the Red Room. Trump comes out. Melania's in tow in back of him, and Rudy's there with some women that he took there to impress her, a younger female. Trump walks out, and he does a dash straight for her, comes right up to her and says, "Whoa, and who is she with?" This is the president of the United States in the Red Room in the White House. And Rudy does these googly eyes like she's with me, and he's like, "My man Rudy," like this. And Melania comes up and smacks him in the back of the head, basically, and that was the end of picture taking. So, I mean, you're talking about now. I mean, he did it just recently.
So it is. To me, it's your journey is a remarkable journey that you came into this world. And I'll be honest with you, had I known you in those early days, I would have hated your guts.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I had and have had, no empathy for this guy going back to when I was doing stand-up comedy in Atlantic City and would run into his entourage. But I think I do understand the seduction. I understand when people say good, nice and supportive things about your ideas and thoughts. You tend to gravitate to them. It's a normal human reaction. One of the things that I kind of asked you before, and I want to figure out, I mean, here today, Obviously, you're in a totally different part of your life. In some ways, I guess you might feel lucky. You never really went inside. They could have orchestrated that espionage against you and made you settle for prison time or something. Looking at life
Oh
in
no,
prison, right? I mean,
no, they did, and I went to trial. I fought it. Believe me, they tried to. Even when I lost my trial, the Southern District tried to put me away for 10 to 12 years, and I was blessed because I had the truth on my side, God on my side, my family, and most important, the judge saw through their bullshit. He saw that this was a
yeah,
political witch hunt, and because if the charges that I got convicted of, if if I would have been charged with them, I probably wouldn't have even got arrested. They would have negotiated a deal with me. I wouldn't have even probably seen jail time. I mean, when was the last time you seen the FBI, Southern District of New York, and everybody combined, and the NSA, CIA go after a guy for a $2 million wire fraud?
yeah.
Really? I mean,
How
just
how mentally ill do you think Donald Trump is?
he's getting worse and worse every day. I
No,
mean,
but I know now, but that might be dementia or that cognitive decline could be something that
yeah.
happens to a lot of
It's a
people at that
combination,
age.
right? It's a combination
Yeah.
of things, but I mean, he's been mentally ill for as long as he's been around. I mean, his actions, you could tell. Just back at history and take a look at his actions. From the guy impersonated a reporter to call up and give dirt about
Yeah.
to make himself look. I mean, I could go on. I mean, he put on a chicken suit to come out there. And pretend he was a chicken to promote chicken. I mean,
When you were
he'll do
talking to
things
him,
a salesman. Yeah.
when you were talking to him, Lev, was there ever a point where you thought to yourself, I'm in pretty deep here, and this guy is not exactly who I thought he was. What was that aha moment for you? Because obviously you're 180 degrees different than you were 8, 9 years ago.
The interesting part is I think I looked up more to the office of the presidency than him because he was a laughing. I mean, we laughed at him internally. People made fun of him behind his back. I mean, you had Kevin McCarthy talking shit behind his back. You had Rudy would get pissed at him talk. I mean, Victoria, we would sit there and be pissed. I remember the discussions and the going after him because he just wouldn't fire Maria Ivanovich in a proper manner to get rid of her because he did it so awkwardly and half-assed. She wouldn't. Pompeo wouldn't exercise the firing of her, and I remember those meetings. Like they would talk about, like, what's wrong with him? Is he crazy? Like, does he not know what he's doing? And they would talk about him as like he needs to be force fed. Like he needs to, like, we need to get the media involved. So like this, once he gets pissed off and once he hears Hannity go out there and call him like that he's not strong enough or doesn't have the balls to do it, he'll do it. And that's what it is. So just gotta think about it. To be able to get the president of the United States to do it, you gotta get on his, like, you gotta get him angry. You gotta get him, instead of just sitting down in the Oval and going over a document. And that was over and over again. Even just take a look at what was going on during the impeachment. How when they were coming in and talking about the three amigos, the meetings in the Oval, where you would have you had Bolton, you had your national security advisor, you had all these people in there trying to tell you, and then he turns around and said, "You know what? Speak to Rudy." Rudy has a good handle on what's going on in Ukraine. Just think about it.
All right. So in upcoming episodes, we'll release more of these, Lev, obviously. And I think that this is not going away anytime soon. We have an election in the fall. We have
Absolutely.
3 criminal trials still in front of Trump. We have this immunity case that's being heard as we speak before the Supreme Court. In your mind, if Trump should be reelected, and I don't see that as happening, especially what's happening right now in these swing states. The numbers are beginning to really start to swing towards Biden, and a kind of a slow but very demonstrative way. People are beginning. I've never believed that he has the kind of people, the kind of support that even some of these polls point to. I think that they've changed the way that they do these polls after screwing it up so bad in 2020 and 2016. All that said. What are your thoughts about if he should be reelected? How would that affect you personally?
I mean, I don't even want to sit there and think because I would be obviously on the list of people that he wants to take revenge and action against, and people he would weaponize the DOJ to go after. So I mean, it is what it is. But it's like you can't be scared during a war, what would happen if the enemy wins, because it's obvious it's a war. If the enemy, it's like Ukraine. If Russia wins, I mean, Ukrainians are going to suffer. Some will suffer more than others. Some will go to prison. Some will die, and some, that's the outcome when a country takes over the other. Same thing here, because we're not in an election. We are at war. Donald Trump has divided this country in between good and evil, and you have the people that are supporting Trump don't want unity. They don't want peace in the world. They want to isolate America first. They want to get rid of women's rights. They want to get rid of immigration. They want to take this country back 200 years. And that's what they want. So if Trump wins, I mean, for me, I think it's going to be horrible. But, I'm just one person. I think it'll be tremendous. I mean, I think there'll be lots of deaths, all over the world because of the wars that are going on, because of the way he will handle it. You're going to have a lot of displacement, and you're going to have a lot of, problems. So I think it'll be, disastrous for everybody, not just me.
Internationally, J.D. Vance was on being interviewed, I believe, by Jake Tapper, talking about, he said there's no evidence that Russia even has the military strength to push through Ukraine into Poland and go after NATO. Some of that, I believe, is accurate. And I think that this, as we just found out this week, the Senate and House want to fund Ukrainian and their cause, which makes me feel better that we had Democrats and Republicans again beginning to come together on this. You want to hear a funny story from the 80s? The buddy of mine worked for the State Department and used to tell me that the group part of the State Department that assigned diplomatic tags used to have fun with it. And he told me this without knowing for sure that, the USSR, what their diplomatic tags were? They started with the letters FC, and it was at random. But he, in fun, used to tell this low-level Russian diplomat that it meant fucking communists. So he went back and told them, and they raised a huge stink to state to get them changed. So it just goes to show you, like, where this, and the truth was in the ether here. I don't really know why they got FC. It probably had nothing to do with that. But once a rumor started floating around, and growing up in DC, I live near Embassy Row. It was insane. You could see all sorts of people intermingle. It was such a different world than it is. And that was during the Cold War, when they had ICBMs pointed at all American cities like they do now.
The biggest difference, and that's the biggest thing, is even during the Cold War and everything, we were united. Americans were united. Democrats, Republicans were united against the enemy. Today, majority of America is still united. But you have that small fraction with a very loud voice that are those mega Trump supporters. And that was a perfect example in Congress. Majority of Congress, Republicans, Democrats alike, voted and gave aid to Ukraine. It was the few, the Marjorie Greens of the world, that were holding it up and were making it because of their loyalty to Trump.
I wonder who Trump trusts now to get information. Obviously, he's not getting information through our state or he never trusted our state.
You got to remember when he met with Putin, and they asked him, they said, your State Department, your national security advisors are telling you that Russian, but he said, no, I just spoke to Putin. He looked at me and said, why would I want to interfere with your elections? I believe him. So no, he does. You got to understand. That's why I called my book Shadow Diplomacy. That's why we were a shadow diplomacy, because Trump didn't trust the FBI. There's the FBI, the DOJ, even though they were underneath him. Because you have to understand, even Republicans, even people that are underneath in Trump administration do not like Trump. Very few people like Trump. The only people that like Trump are people that are same-minded people, dictators, criminals, people that want to take advantage of the system. Those are the people that are pushing Trump. That is why Vladimir Putin will do anything power to get Trump involved. That's why any oligarch out there will want to get Trump involved. That's why any criminal businessman would want to get Trump involved, because they know Trump will play ball. His administration you'll be able to work with.
Okay. Couple last things before we go. What is your take on Zelensky's rise and continued stronghold position in defending Ukraine against Russia? A lot of people didn't see that coming. A former comedian, entertainer.
We didn't. We definitely thought, he's going to be a pushover. I mean, we thought he's a comedian. He's going to come in, have no political background, and he's going to do whatever we tell him.
Yeah.
do, and the boy, the Hebrew was strong. Look, Zelensky came in and he stood up to a tyrant. He stood up to two tyrants. He stood up to Trump and to Putin. And and right now, taking a look 2 years later after the war started, if you think about it, Putin and everybody, even Trump, were talking about, Russia would take Ukraine in 3 days. They would take over Kiev in 3 days. Well, we're almost 3 years almost into it, and Ukraine is standing strong. And with the support now that they're going to receive from the United States and NATO, and hopefully once Biden wins the White House, and he won't have any political stances to hold him back from actually helping Ukraine, I think that's when we're going to see the downfall of Russia and a very powerful win for Ukraine.
Let me ask you that real quick. And I think this is a real important thing, is that obviously moving forward here when Malcolm Nance was over there, Malcolm?
I know Malcolm. Yeah.
Okay,
Malcolm's a great guy.
Malcolm said everybody he spoke to over there was so proud of Zelensky. Just this metamorphosis from this guy. But the people that really knew him said he was always like this. He was always a patriot, and he always believed in Ukraine, and he would die, and he doesn't get, he's the kind of person that Americans look at and go, damn, I wish he was over here on our, over there. But he is on our side in that regard.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, he's actually in the front line. I mean, Ukraine, that's what a lot of Americans, and that's why I try to get the messages, what they understand. For us, we're talking about money. But these Ukrainians are putting their life on the front line, fighting for not only their democracy, but for the world democracy.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to understand. So the least we could do is help them by supporting them with, financially, everything, because, they try to say, we don't want our kids fighting on the ground. Well, exactly.
Could you go back to Ukraine today after everything that happened? Would you be, can you be punished under their system?
Oh, no.
Did you break any laws there?
No, Ukraine. I have a very good connection. I mean, I've been very helpful to getting I'd say over $200-300 million worth of Ukrainian humanitarian aid. I was instrumental in getting Howard Buffett Foundation into Ukraine. So Ukraine is my home. I was born in Ukraine. I have family, friends, and I have now a lifelong responsibility, duty on my back to make up for the wrongs that I was a part of with Trump, to be able to help Ukrainian people, to be able to get them their sovereignty and be able to live like normal people in the world in democracy. So no, I think that, obviously, not everybody, but I think a majority of Ukrainians love me and respect that what I'm doing now on their behalf, and trying to get the truth out and to really let them understand how this Russian disinformation is not only hurting Ukraine, but also interfering in the United States elections and also the worldwide politics. And so by going there, I think it'd be dangerous for me, just because of, you still have lots of Russian influence all over there. And I think, when it comes to Russia, I'm not friendly. I'm enemy number one, because not only am I speaking out against Russia and the truth, talking truth to what they're doing. So, so I think from that standpoint, but from a Ukrainian, I think I would be welcome to go there.
Well, I tell people when I'm talking to you, I say, look, everybody fucks up at some point in their life. It's what you do after that matters, and and it's, we know each other a little bit, and I get that sense from you that this is what you want to do. Moving forward on our again, releasing these tapes, I know that there's
well, it's not just tapes. We have a voluminous amount of information. We have videos, tapes, emails, text messages. I mean, the text messages alone that, once we put them into form and put them into context and see, direct contact between Giuliani, Trump, Jay Sekulow, myself. You name, every player probably that you can name is involved in that. I have some sort of a connection or some sort of information that we're going to be putting out. So yeah, there's a bunch, and we'll be putting out, like I said, videos, emails, text messages, a whole bunch of stuff. So just hold on to your hats, sit back, and get your popcorn, enjoy yourself. And, we have the next 6-7 months to fight this war, to be able to get all this truth out, to, save our democracy. And we're going to do it, Chip.
Shadow Diplomacy, you can get on Amazon. It's funny too, because my wife ordered it for me 2 days ago, so I'm going to have a copy. To read
you should tell me. No, I would have said,
no, man. Yeah. We want to support each other.
I appreciate that.
All right. By the way, before we go, I want to thank our Patreon members and do our special shout out today to N. Sumner, who is one of our big Patreon new members, and thank him and thank everybody else that supports this podcast. MAGA Inside Out is a straight up, adventure in trying to bring these stories to you that we all hear for 5 minutes on the news. But as you point out in these long interviews, these are complicated stories, like the laptop. At some point, we'll get into that as well.
Oh yeah, we got a lot to get into. We're just getting started. I mean, a lot of people don't know the true story, so we're going to take it a little bit slow, but be patient. But we really want you to understand exactly what transpired, because it's extremely important to understand the truth behind the criminality, the conspiracy, and the people involved to get our country to where we are today.
Well, stay well and stay safe, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. See you next week.
All right, stay tuned. MAGA Inside Out. You can find all of our videos at Really American Media. And again, for everybody that's listening here and for Lev and myself, you stay safe, and we'll see you next time.